All right, welcome back to High P at Home, everybody. We're going to have a little fun today. Got two of my favorite high school coaches on with us, along with Scott Tazinski. Scotty, how you doing?
What's up, guys? Good to see you again, Cary. It's been too long, man.
Yeah. We're going to be with each other all day today, I think. Joining us, like I said, our very special guest is the Lafayette girls varsity coach, Mr. Zach Young. Zach, how are you?
Hey guys, good. Thanks for having me on.
And the St. Louis University High School head coach, Mr. Jeff Cheak. Jeff, how are you?
Doing well, Cary. Appreciate you guys having us on as well.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. First thing is, obviously with what's going on in the pandemic and us staying at home, there's no high school volleyball right now for Jeff. Zach's at home with his family, away from school. Just want to see how you guys are dealing with this personally. How's everything going? Jeff, why don't you kick it off?
Yeah, probably the word that sticks out is miserable. It's kind of different, right? I mean, we had the tease. I don't know how well everybody knows, but there's actually a couple of weeks of practice before everything kind of turned to where we were. So, the first couple of weeks, you kind of get that flavor back for an exciting season, seeing a lot of the young guys in the gym, seeing what potentially could grow through the season. So you kind of get that little just hint of what the season's going to be. And, right around the end of the second week, we, basically saw this kind of coming, but even then you thought it was maybe a few weeks, a month. So with each step, you feel worse and you feel horrible for the whole program. You feel miserable for the seniors. I mean, there's not words. I've talked to each of them. We've had quite a few Zoom meetings, some kind of program get-togethers, but they just miss out on the fun year. And then you also feel miserable for those freshmen that finally get into the program, kind of get to understand what it takes to be part of not just the SLUH program, but St. Louis volleyball. And that's something that they missed out on that experience. So, you ask how I'm doing. It's a burden to kind of watch the month or the days flip by the month, but feel worse for the kids, bottom line. And that's where the miserable part really comes in.
Yeah, I hear you. It's, I tell people all the time, I'm literally used to being surrounded by people a day and most of them being kids. So it's been tough. Zach, you were surrounded by kids all day. How's everything going at home for you?
Yeah, well, if your word's miserable, I think mine is a roller coaster. Yeah, it's what. There's been a lot of really neat times. Those that don't know, I've got four kids, and we've had a lot of time that we wouldn't have been able to have. So I'm lucky enough that my wife Jill, we both get to stay at home and balance each other's work schedules, which has been a challenge. But yeah, there's been a lot of really cool days that we've got memories that we wouldn't have had. But we also have those very stressful days that we're just counting down the time until it's bath time and bedtime and we can just sit down and watch a show. Yeah, my oldest, Leah, is 7 and she's become a rock star on the bike. And so we've done a lot of walks and bike riding, which, usually daddy's at work at that time. So there's been a lot of cool things come out of this as well.
Yeah, the one thing that I keep on going back to in this thing, and you just alluded to it, Zach, is family, right? I mean, the family time that we are getting, but more importantly, the teams that we coach are just an extended family to our own, right? These kids are just another 12 kids that we feel like are family. And got to go back to you, Jeff, right now, because I coach obviously 3 of your guys who are some of the biggest players on your team. And, seeing these guys after what you guys accomplished last year, getting into it for the first couple of weeks, and then it's just taken away. We've been doing Zoom meetings ourselves because I didn't want to actually, have to evade into your guys' space. Misha, obviously, when they canceled, I said, man, I got to distract these guys from not being able to have their high school season. How do you think you guys are going to do again this year, moving into it? Because I'm sure coming off last year is going to be another pretty good season for you guys.
Yeah, we had some high expectations. We actually had a team meeting about what the expectations of the year were. And, if you look at the talent that we had this year, it was still young in nature. Like you said, you have George and Philip and Tanner and Craig and Michael Yem. And then there's, a lot of the guys that people don't know and see every day like that, where it's, EJ Reyes, is a senior middle who I was really excited about what he looked like in the gym in the first 2 weeks. So, the expectation, no matter where I've ever coached, I always set the bar at state. I think it's the right mentality to have, even if you think you have great talent or if you think your team is young with a lot of potential. I love setting that bar there, right? And kind of teaching the kids, this is what it takes. This is a mentality that you have to have each day in the gym to be able to achieve that. And even if the years you don't achieve it, you still learn, what is that gap between where you started and what you thought it was going to take and what did we miss, So when you ask what were the expectations, definitely getting back to state. We were really looking forward to some matchups with O'Fallon and Vianney. I think O'Fallon was a team this year, granted not in St. Louis, that wouldn't have been in a state run, but they were crazy talented. Our entire schedule, Kirkwood, there are so many teams that I thought probably had a really, really good shot. I would say there were 8 to 10 teams that could have made it. Selfishly, I liked our chances. I thought our ball control is probably the best that I've ever seen on a team that I've coached. We had 4 what I consider starting liberos. So, that's a good problem to have. So disappointed that we didn't get to see where the journey ended, but a lot of talent. And that's the part when it's kind of tough to handle, when you just think what could have been, but still, there's a lot of those kids, at least they have the 2 more years in the program that they get to kind of achieve or see what they can achieve.
Yeah, for sure. I had that O'Fallon match circled on my schedule too, to come and check out the boys and see how it's going to happen. Zach, over to you. I know it's probably not much different, obviously, right now from what you would normally do with the team. Obviously, another great run last year as well, and finishing it off. What is the thought process and the unknown of, are we going to be able to come back and be able to have tryouts when we're supposed to? Are you guys already doing some Zoom meetings right now and getting everybody kind of squared away at what could or could not happen?
Yeah, it's funny you say that. We, as coaches, which I'm super lucky with the coaching staff I have, Steve Burkhardt, Sue Tillery, Kim Ashoff, we've been together, I think, going on 13, 14 years. And then we just added Chris Toomey and Jordan Berry in the last couple of years, and just all super knowledgeable. We're all on the same page. We all get along. We just enjoy hanging out. So we actually set up just a coaches Zoom when this first started happening, just to get together and be like, hey, how's everybody doing? Just checking in. And I actually kind of just I tried to call every kid in our program just to check in, and we were at spring break at this time, and I think there's some kids going, we might come back. Some kids are going, I don't know if we're coming back. So it was really interesting to get what everybody's home life looked like at that time. And as the coaches got on our Zoom meetings, they were a little jealous that I got to actually talk to the kids. So we actually this past week just set up 4 different groups where we could kind of just check in with the kids, see how they're doing. We actually did a kind of a thank you letter challenge that they could kind of reach out to people in their community that are, in the medical field, first responders, a way to give back that doesn't cost them anything. But it actually, we're this time of year, we are usually pretty hands off and kind of just, hey, we'll see you at a club tournament, we'll high five, and we can't do either of those things right now. So, so we said, hey, if nobody's overwhelmed by this, and we checked in with a couple kids, said, hey, do you guys have too much on the plate? Could we get together? And everybody seemed pretty excited about it. So, yeah, we've actually done a couple Zoom meetings and checked in with the kids, and it's been kind of nice getting to see them in the spring when we don't normally get to do that.
Hey, Jeff, you said a word that I kind of want to go back to. You talked about expectations and setting expectations and talking about that. You guys both, just to frame a reference, like St. Louis U High, the expectations there are way different from a volleyball standpoint than when I was there. Jeff knows that because we played against each other. But how do you do, and Zach, I'm going to give you your answer. When going into, it seems like going into every season, the expectation is that you should win state. How do you deal with that? Especially last year, you had a freshman setter, a couple of freshman contributors. how are you dealing with that, the so-called pressure of those expectations?
Yeah, so Cary, I assume like our matches that you were just discussing that we played in were just like 10 years ago or so, right?
Right. Yeah, just a couple
We're
years
not
ago.
that old. No, that actually, Cary, I love that question, right? Because I think that's part of the fun challenge when you're coaching is how do you set the expectation, not just for the team, but the individuals, as far as you're going to have those that are starters and they need to understand and inside of that starting role, what is their role and expectation? You're going to have bench guys. What are their expectations from the bench? But the common theme that I always have around expectation is we should embrace it, right? Like, to me, you can be scared, you can be cautious in big moments, or you can set yourself up mentally to kind of have that, this is where we want to be. And I start that with day one a lot, with conversations around how you go about drills. And to me, it's the Jeff Gabbert foundation, right? Like, if you're in a gym with Jeff Gabbert and you let a ball drop and you didn't make a move for it, that's going to be a problem. Step two is, if you're not going 110% all the time, you're not going to be able to handle that situation when you're in the middle of a state point at 23 all, because you're doing something that's uncomfortable for you. So really, at the end of the day, I look at it as we're working in drills, we're working in scrimmages as if it's that 23 all in state, that intensity, so that when we are in that spot, it's not uncomfortable. It's what they've been doing. They've trained their body to be prepared for that, and their mind should be calm in that manner. Does it always work? No. But a lot of the times, right? And to me, that's the expectation I sit down with the team and explain. It was great. Peter Kurt was one of my seniors this year, and he was funny because, his story to the guys was around expectation. He's like, look, when you put on the SLUH jersey, the expectation is that there are teams that lose to you 25-20 and you just made their year, because they were in a battle with SLUH. And he's like, the expectation is that you better bring it every point because everybody wants to beat you. So what I love about it is getting in the gym with the guys and being like, let's go to work. Let's play with a competitive fire. If it's, a regular scrimmage, or if it's the first game of the season or the midseason. There's ways and techniques that, you can help motivate and pull some of these guys up when they're kind of down. But at the end of the day, we embrace the whole journey, Cary, and that's what I love about SLUH is it is a high expectation.
Sure is. And I'm, having been a part of the program, I won't say how many years ago for Jeff's sake, I'm really, really proud where it is now. So keep up the good work. Zach, I am glad that we're having this conversation in May and not in August, because if I said, hey, Zach, what are your expectations for the season? You say, well, we're playing St. Joe on May 4th on September 4th, and we'll see how that goes. But now that we're having this conversation, this weird time, you are in charge of a program that does have super high expectations every year. How do you guys deal with that?
Yeah, it's kind of funny you say that. I mean, of our, crazy run we've had, probably half the years I think we've been kind of maybe the top dog, but not like SLUH where it's, every year, you're expected to be the favorite. I think there's been a lot of years we've, kind of been the underdog a little bit as you get into postseason. But we've got one goal every year, and that's to be better at the end than we were at the beginning. We want to play our best volleyball in October. And that's pretty much it. And that kind of hopefully it takes the pressure off a little bit of our teams, because trying to live up to the team before and the team before and the team before, I'm sure Jeff deals with that a little bit too, where you got to make your own journey. You got to make your own identity. So we kind of preach that every year that, hey, we're all about improvement. It's got to be individually. You got to want to get better. And as a team, we've got to get better. If we're the same team as we are in August as we are in October, well, coaches haven't done their job and players haven't done their job. So I think that's one thing our program does a good job of. If the players buy in, I think we've got a great coaching staff that can individually develop players. We try and preach that to them. Hey, it's okay, be selfish. Use us to get you a little bit better. but then we also have to have the unselfish part where that kid on the bench knows their role. And that's so key. And I'm sure Jeff will say the same thing. It's more than talent. You've got to have a team chemistry aspect to it, because eventually you're going to run against a team that is going to be as good as you, or might have a great day and be able to knock you off if you're kind of yipping at each other a little bit. So I think our program's done a really good job with that. Obviously, I was lucky enough to step into something that Steve Burkhardt had built for years and years and years of a great program. And that tradition had kind of already been a pay it forward type of attitude. But yeah, again, I think improvements are one of our biggest ones, and every team is a little bit different. It's kind of like a Rubik's Cube. You got to kind of figure them out. Some teams need you to get hyped. Some teams need you to just chill and let them take over. Some teams need you to get on them a little bit. Some teams need you to just kind of put in the lineup and call timeouts when needed. So, trying to figure out each team is definitely a challenge in itself, but it's why it makes it pretty fun.
So, hey, Zach, I have a follow-up to that. Not like taking Cary and Scott's job from him. So last year, talk about a crazy run. What type of team do you think you have last year? Because that Oakville-Coriezu combination of win was crazy impressive. I was curious. I wanted to ask you and bug you after one of the games to be like, A, what was the game plan, but B, what was the type of team that you guys thought you had going in comparison to when you got to that match?
Yeah, that was a pretty insane week, not just weekend. We had to face Marquette and Eureka in districts, and both of them were very good. And then to go into Oakville, who I think had only lost one or two all year, and Coriezu, who obviously was incredible, and obviously had an injury or two that hampered them, but they were still just crazy good. Yeah, I think it goes back to, again, of getting the kids to play their best ball at the right time. And I think we went into all those matches of going, this is the lineup, this is what we're going with. Everybody needs to be full steam ahead, and let's see how far this run takes us. And you got to get the ball to bounce your way a couple times too. I mean, it's there's always those points that you look back on and go, man, if we would have had that one fall our way, I think it would have been different. Or man, if they would have gotten that point, that turns that whole match. But yeah, going in, I think for us last year, I think we had, we did have a lot of size, but we really had to lock in defense and serving, I think was going to be our big key in all of those matches. And I think our kids at the service line, and I think our kids defensively, both at the net and in the back row, just stepped up when they needed to.
Well, since Jeff is running this podcast now, I like it. It's great. Phenomenal question, Jeff. Man, I got so many things running through my mind of questions I want to ask. The one cool thing is, the whole Last Dance right now going on with Michael Jordan. Of course, Kobe passing, and brings me back to, you guys have so many good players on both of your teams. I mean, by far, stacked beyond belief, and so many, individual players. Kobe said something, there's no I in team, but there is a me. Of course, Michael Jordan the other day in The Last Dance said there's no I in team, but there is an I in win. And so, how important, and I obviously this is huge, to have teams like you guys have that go on consistent runs and win state championships year after year after year, is getting the whole entire team to buy into one common cause. Because obviously you can't have one guy out there doing his own little thing, being on his own little island, and obviously winning these state championships like you do year after year. Jeff, bring it to you, since you guys should have been on the run right now, obviously. How do you get all the guys to just buy into the one common goal?
I think there's probably multiple answers to that, and I love that question, because when I'm watching that documentary right now and reliving the glory days of watching Jordan, but I think the couple of answers is, one, the tradition. There's an expectation on the tradition side that when these freshmen come in, they know what the program is about. We sit down and have that as a coaching staff, but remove the coaching staff for a little bit. What I'm always so impressed with the SLUH program is the communication from the seniors down to the other programs. What you'll see when you walk in the gym is there's a freshman or a JV practice. you'll find varsity guys around or on that court talking, teaching, giving them the background of who it is. And then the other piece is the alumni. You know, we're a lot like Zach, right? Blessed with talent. But there's something to be said that when you get that talent back in the gym. So we had George Human come back and talk to the guys about what SLUH meant to him. And, you know, everybody in the volleyball community knows George. And at the end of the day, you know, George is like, look, being in this gym and practicing is what you're going to miss more than almost anything else. He's like, it's the practice. It's being around your brothers, knowing that they have your back and, you know, you have their back on their worst days or on their best days. And that could be, you know, you go out and you tank and you hit a negative 100 against a big match, or it could be that you had a monster match. But it's about the other guys. And, you know, I can go all the way down the line since I've been there. I mean, there's Ryan Abelin and Sean Hughes and Kyle Cohan and Van House and Dalton Addis. I mean, there's just a litany of people that I could talk to about who are major stars. But then there's these kids like that are my current seniors, you know, like Gabe Mills and Peter Kurt and EJ Reyes and JP Schreiber, who they are preaching the same message. Are they going to go on to what George Human's going to do and play at that national level? Probably not. But you know what they do is, man, they're reinforcing what we believe in the program by sitting there with their freshmen and showing them how things need to be done. So that's kind of my answer to it, Scott. You know, it's great, and we're spoiled from a coaching staff side because the guys that we have in the program and that come back to the program make it pretty easy for us.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm going to throw this over to Zach in a sec. I got this book that we read at Long Beach State called Legacy by James Kerr, man. And that's like what you just said in a nutshell. It's, you know, everybody just giving back when they leave, when they're there. They have a really cool part here of sweeping the sheds. If you're the best player inside of the class, you're actually the ones that are sweeping the floors and mopping and doing all that stuff. It's crazy to hear that. Zach, what about you guys over at Lafayette?
Yeah, man, that's crazy. I could probably just piggyback right on what Jeff said right there. It's I was amazed when I came into Lafayette, and one of the biggest things that I had tried to build in every program that I had ever been in, whether it was, you know, another high school or college or whatever, of, you know, you've got to get the young kids when they come in to look at the seniors and go, oh, that's the way you do it. And if the seniors are doing it the right way, your job as a coach is pretty easy. If they're not doing it the right way, you've got your work cut out for you, because there's, you know, you usually go with what you see, not so much with what you hear all the time. And, you know, we can preach all day long, this is how you do it, this is how you're supposed to do it. But if they look over their left shoulder and say, well, wait, she's not working very hard and she's a senior captain, it's an uphill battle. And I'm not going to lie, it's, you know, we've had teams like that where it's like, that's not the way you do it. But then we've had other teams that's like, this is a breeze. Look over there. Look at Lily Johnson. Look at Lily Cooper. See them. That's how you do it. They're working hard. They're putting their arm around a freshman who just came in the door and doesn't know anybody and might not even make the team, and saying, hey, you want to come pepper? You know, those are the kind of kids that we've just been blessed to have a bunch of them. And they, you know, we say, pay it forward, pass it on. We still have our alumni come back and do a lot of things with our kids, whether it be camps, whether it be letter writing before the season. You know, it's funny as you get into our playoff run of how many texts and emails and all kinds of stuff from players that you think have just forgotten about you, and all of a sudden there's their mom and dad in the stands, or that, you know, there they are shooting you a text 10 minutes after you win. You know, that it truly is a family feel to all of it. So, you know, kind of piggybacking right off of what Jeff said of, you know, if your older kids buy in and are working just as hard as the kid who's just fighting to try and get 2 points in a match, then you're in a good spot.
So I know both of your guys' journeys really well as coaches. We've known each other a long time and been through a lot of stuff together. I'm interested because you guys have two different paths, I guess is the right word. I mean, Zach kind of family business, and Jeff, you went and got a non-volleyball job, but have stayed in coaching since. I'm just kind of interested. I like hearing people's stories about when they decided, well, this is who I am. This is what I want to do. And this is why I want to do it. Jeff, we'll start with you, having a 9-to-5 job, but still managing to coach high school, coach club, and be a father at the same time. When did that process start for you?
So it's kind of funny. So, as I think you guys all know, I started with Gabbard as an assistant coach at Vianney. So went to Vianney, went off to college, and then just got a random phone call, kind of out of the blue, talked to Gabbard a little bit and Mr. Larry Fuhrer, and got a call one day, and they were like, look, any interested in being the JV coach, assistant varsity? And I was kind of like, are you really that desperate? Like, how far down the list did you go before you made the phone call? But the first year, it's funny, it was actually Scott's junior year. I started laughing because I walked in the gym. I'm like, well, this looks a whole lot different than I left the gym. These guys are pretty talented. Where did volleyball go? But I owe probably to two main people where my coaching went. First is Jeff Gabbard, for sure. The amount of time he spent with me talking through the philosophy of how to coach and watching him with each individual player, and really everything we've talked about is how Jeff's approached his program. So being able to watch that for the 8 years that I was there, I was really spoiled. You got to watch one of the best coaches do what he did and absorb some of that. And then the other one's my wife. We're big sports fans, and at the end of the day, the only way it was even possible to do what I was doing with 40 plus hours, then leaving work, then going to put X amount of hours in the gym, and then coming home, and then poor Kim, me then probably pulling out a laptop or notes and going through and obsessing about, okay, we lost, what do we need to do, what does the next practice plan look like, from our weaknesses and how they beat us, how do we improve, and her having to listen to me ramble about that each night. It's funny because she's been one of my biggest supporters of allowing me to go do that. Because really at the end of the day, she during the spring season turns into almost a single mom. And we have two kids. Now they're older. Now, they're teenagers. They don't care where dad's at now. They're like, see ya. But no, and then from there, obviously went to CDC for 8 years, and that opened my eyes a lot. One with, I couldn't thank them enough for giving me the opportunity to be the head coach there, but having to build a program, and Matt Koitzer was there before and had a good program. So walked into it, wasn't like starting from ground zero, but having to learn all of the details of the schedule making, referees, all of that chaos that comes with, kind of the full head coach responsibility. I got the opportunity there. And then at the end of my time there, it was a tough decision to leave CBC. Love the guys, like absolutely. It's like any program you go into, you're asking for everything they have, and they gave it. But at the end of the day, just kind of burned out of a lot of it. Was going to take a little break, and then SLUH called. I was kind of not interested. They scheduled an interview, went, and blew me away with, the support that they give that program. And Dick Wayner and Chris Muskoff are phenomenal. I mean, phenomenal when it comes to supporting boys volleyball. So, here I am. So that's kind of the journey, Cary. So hopefully that's kind of a long-winded answer, but hopefully got to your question.
No problem. And I'm glad that Dick Wayner got a shout out on this recording. He's one of my favorite people of all time. Zach, I jokingly said that you went into the family business, and I'll let you kind of expand. But you and I had similar experiences. Starting coaching at a young age. When did and you're an educator? It's not like you don't have another job, but I think we all see ourselves as educators, as coaches. When did that become life?
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I think people forget that I have another job sometimes. Like I don't just coach. Actually, the other one pays the bills. But yeah, well, it all started on a farm in Jonesburg, Cary. I mean, come on. What else do you do on a farm but learn how to play volleyball in the middle of Missouri? No, my mom and dad both were in coaching, and so that's kind of where I picked it up. I just, in high school I played, football, basketball, baseball, and then kind of picked up volleyball when I was in middle school and drove, an hour and a half into St. Louis for club practices. And my mom coached, and I just fell in love with the game. And it was kind of one of those from an early age, like, this is what I'm going to do. Like, I have to have volleyball in my life somehow. So obviously when the playing days were over, even when I was playing in college, I was coaching club a little bit as well. And I loved it. I love what you can do with teams and do with kids. And I just right away fell into it. So I learned a ton from my mom. So off the bat, I mean, she was just probably the go-getter type coach that I really picked up a lot of things in her game. And I know that, Scotty, I think you played for both my mom and dad, so you could probably have a lot of stories with both of them. And then Cary, you coached with dad at Lindenwood for, 8-10 years. And then dad, I just picked up so many X's and O's about the game that you just really never thought of before, where we're going into scouting reports and, like, all right, because I got to coach with you and dad for a while, which was great at Lindenwood. And, you're like, okay, we got to avoid the libero on serving. We cannot serve him ever. And then dad would pipe in, yeah, except when he's in zone 1, obviously. Oh, and you go back and look at film, and yeah, when he's in zone 1, he passes a 1-5, and everywhere else he's great. So, stuff like that my mom and dad, I picked up a ton. So coming out of college, I was obviously looking for a teaching job somewhere, and was able to get on in Wright City, and went out to Wright City after coaching at Lindenwood as an assistant for a while, so you're coaching pretty high level men and women's team, men's going to the Final Four every year in NAIA. And then out in Wright City, taking on a team that had one kid that ever played before. The rest of them didn't know how to rotate, didn't know how to pass a ball, nothing. And I always say that's when I became a good coach that year. Because you truly get to know kids and know what they need from you, not so much the skill part of it, but how can I get that kid to play hard and buy into what I'm doing. So a couple years there, a couple years at Wentzville Holt, and loved my time. Really learned a lot about the game, a lot of different ways to play, a lot of different mentality. Just loved my time in Wright City and Wentzville. And then it got to be a point where I was lucky enough to get on at Lafayette. I actually still remember the day when I got a job in Rockwood, and Coach Burkhardt called me about a week later and said, hey, we've got a JV opening. Are you interested? And I was a head coach a couple years before, and my team was playing against Coach Burkhardt's team. And I think we did get in the double digits. I think we at least scored in the teens against them. But I remember telling my wife that day, like, that guy has my dream job. Like, you watch the way they play, their bench, they're into it, they're unselfish. That's where I want to be. And it's funny how, 15 years later, here I am, and I get to work together with Steve, who's taught me a lot. And run this incredible program. So that's kind of my journey all the way through. But Cary, all those years at Lindenwood running camps, and then at Wash U, so many good times. And then Scotty, I know there's, times back in the day whenever you and your club team would come out to Montgomery County, and we'd do some lock-in sleepovers and play volleyball all night. And it's been a long, fun journey, but wouldn't have guessed I would end up here, but I'm pretty blessed. And last but definitely not least, I need to piggyback on what Jeff said. None of it's possible if I don't have a spouse that says, yes, you can do this. During the fall, I will take all the kids, and not just her, our extended family, just really help out. Because as Jeff will tell you, and as you guys know, it's not just the practice hours that goes into it. I mean, if you do it the right way, you spend an unbelievable amount of time putting it into your team to give them the best chance, which takes a lot of time away from family during that time too. So I got to give a shout out to Jill as well.
Yeah, that's what people don't understand. Obviously, I played for a long time, and then I got pretty much my dream job at Long Beach State. And moving into there, I had no idea how many hours a coach put in, man. I'll tell you that. And then when I got that, it was a shock. And of course, my wife was phenomenal through it all. Obviously, the two most influential people, women, outside of my mother and probably my wife, are Donna Mayer and your mom, Ellen Young, man. I mean, so much thanks and praise go to those two women. It's unbelievable for my volleyball career, period. And obviously there's a bunch of men, you know, everywhere that I can thank also. My last question to you guys, and I ask this to every single coach, and kind of a funny little question, but I know people always say they don't have favorites, you know, on a team, and I say that's almost BS sometimes. I've always got a favorite on every single team that I coach. It's almost always the one who works the hardest and communicates the most. But obviously this is going to be a real tough question for you guys with all the good players you have, my Lord. But do you guys have a favorite that you ever coached? And who are they? Or if you don't even want to say, all good with that too. We'll start with you, Zach.
Yeah, I'm pleading the fifth on that one.
Yeah.
You're setting me up there, Scotty.
Hey, Zach, all you have to do is say it was your sister.
Yeah, easily. I got to coach. That was the one kid in Wright City who'd played before was my sister. I got to play her, coach her. Actually, that's very true. That year was something special that we got to grow together. And you know, her days after practice just coming in and like, I don't know if I could do this. I'm like, Sarah, just hang in there. We can do it. But no, I've had so many just awesome. I'm not even going to start naming because the list will go on and on. But I will say tendencies and traits. The kids who come in and work hard, whether they know that they're going to start 6 rotations or they're probably not going to play at all the next game. There are so many names running through my head right now that I just don't want to leave anybody out. So I'm not going to start saying them. But it's not always the most talented kid. But when you get the most talented kid that is also the hardest worker, that's when it's super special too. But yeah, Scotty, you're exactly right. It's my favorites are the kids who buy into the team aspect. And a lot of times that might be number 12 on the bench that knows their role, but also knows how to get that kid on the court to play their best. And they do as much during that big match as we do as well. So,
yeah, it's funny. My team I coached last year for SCVC who won JOs. Yeah, my favorite kid was the kid who never even played a point. I mean, he was the biggest cheerleader on the bench, and we could barely even put the kid in. But you better believe if he wasn't there, our team was nowhere close to the team that we were. I mean, it was just a very unique, special kid. Jeff, your turn. I'm pretty sure you're going to plead the fifth also.
No chance. I have an easy answer. I have 2. And if I don't say these, I'll be thrown out of the house. So I was lucky enough to coach my 2 kids. So Sam and Kaylin. So, you know, I figured that's the easy answer and the accurate answer. But no, it was funny. I was getting ready to steal Zach's line, really. There's so many, you know, and the names that are still just like, you know, Rolodexing through my head of who's had impacts as to helping me be a better coach. And the guys that I still talk to is limitless. You know, there's no way I can answer that outside of the 2 that live with me here. But I mean, it's the traits, and you know, it's the ones that when you look back on year over year, it is the ones that stand out aren't always the ones that are the player of the year or the captain that year. Sometimes it is, but you know, I love the kids, like you were saying, that there's a ball that's shanked off the court in practice and there's nobody watching outside of the team. And he runs 40 feet for this ball and lays out, granted, maybe 10 to 15 feet still away from it. But that's what he's willing to do for the team because he knows his role is to get the guys better in practice. And that's the expectation. And he's willing to go do that at a meaningless, you know, point in a practice because that's how much he loves the team. You know, those guys stick out to me. You know, it is limitless. You know, as I'm sitting here, there's just more names flooding my head, and it's fun, and it's such a good question, right? Like, I don't have a good answer for it, but all I can say is probably kind of a sappy line, but is to really thank all of these kids that are just coming through my head because they're the ones that make you a better coach. You know, they're the ones that when I'm at work and I'm working 50 plus hours at my real job, 60 hours, you get to walk in that gym and you get that energy level just walking through the doors because all of your real problems go away and you just get to go work and have fun with this group. It makes it so much fun. I mean, that's like the passion of coaching when you walk in and you're just like, heck yeah, let's go to work, boys. And, you know, you just ready to roll. And that's due to the kids that, you're kind of asking about, Scotty.
Yep. That was almost a trick question, guys. I apologize, man. The main reason I asked that question is hopefully, we got a lot of kids out there that are watching, and, it's not about being the best kid. Ultimately it comes down to, if there's one last kid that you have to pick on the team and those kids are absolutely equal, what else do they bring to the table besides just volleyball abilities that are going to separate them and make the team better ultimately in the end, when they may never even play 1 point in the whole entire season, but they're on varsity, and that kid could be the difference between you guys winning and losing at the very end of the year. So sorry for the trick question, guys.
We wouldn't expect anything less.
Hey, Scotty, I'm pretty sure, and Cary, you can probably back this up. I hope I don't embarrass him, but I think my brother Josh was that kid. You go back to, he didn't even know if he wanted to play in college. He just stayed on basically because my parents were coaching. But he was a kid who just worked his tail off. And by the end, All-American, starting Lindenwood, playing a couple of national championships, NAIA. But he's a kid who, 10 years before that happened, when he was a teenager, you were like, there's no way that kid's going to athletically do what he did. So I'd also give a shout out to all those kids out there who are like, yeah, I'm an average player. You never know what that's going to develop into if you keep busting tail.
I love it.
It brings up 2 points for me. One, I was the kid talent, and that's why I went into coaching. But two, I never got to coach. I worked with him a little bit at Lindenwood, but I loved going out to Lindenwood and watching Josh play. Josh is one of my favorite setters. Josh's ability to stare down the block while it was coming from that direction, unbelievable. I used to sit there and just in awe. So hopefully we did embarrass him a little bit. That would actually be kind of it's a good segue, actually. We're going to have to wrap it up here soon. We've thrown out a lot, and it's been pretty cool because you guys have thrown out a lot of names of people that are kind of the foundation of what boys volleyball is in St. Louis. Jeff Gabbert was thrown out. Zach's parents, especially Ellen and Ron, Donna Mayer. We've thrown out a bunch of people. We have Wayne Pounds, who we lost recently. We're all Scotty's a little bit younger than us, but the other three of us are similar in age, and we have a lot of names to throw around. I'm interested to know who your favorite teammates were growing up. Jeff, we'll start with you.
No, and I didn't like anybody on my team, Cary. It's funny. The person that sticks out to me that when I first started playing, so I was a baseball kid all through grade school. Family was baseball. Mom played a lot of softball. So when, I tried out freshman year, it was Chris Hensley who actually randomly just brought me to a tryout because we had Monday outfield tryouts. And then Tuesday was nothing. And he's like, hey, come to volleyball tryouts. I was like, Chris, I have literally only played picnic volleyball with my family, who I'm pretty sure we just kind of caught and threw the ball over, and walked in the gym. And I see these guys, passing a volleyball setting. And the weirdest thing was overhand serving. I'm like, I've got nothing, how am I going to figure this out by the time I get through this serving line to not look like a complete idiot? And really it was him and Scott Niebuhr, who we all know really well. I played with him, graduated with him at Vianney, and just the amount of sand volleyball, grass volleyball that we played away from the Griffin Dome back in the day. Those two are probably the two that biggest stick out to me, because really it was the three of us plus like Keith Conradi, Dave O'Brien, some old names, Bob Lampin, Koitzer. These were guys that you just kind of grabbed and said, hey, let's go play some grass volleyball. Hey, let's go to sand and play volleyball. And then, I had Jeff as a coach for a couple of years there too. So that's probably the foundation. The only other guy that I'd be really remiss, not a teammate, was a teammate after I graduated high school, was Dennis Lafayette. Dennis was the man. I played for the Bombers right after high school for a couple of years, and talk about love of volleyball. That guy just has it oozing out, and he would sit there and talk volleyball, and I got to pick his brain, for years. Considered him one of my best friends. So when you talk about teammates, even though it was post high school, he was a teammate that probably taught me the most insight to volleyball post high school.
That's a great shout about Dennis. We all miss him very much. I'll throw to you. You had a different kind of club experience because you guys all from all over the state, and had a college career too at 2 different schools. Tell who your favorite teammates were.
Yeah, man, that's a huge Rolodex. But I do want to, before we get into that, I hope the boys in St. Louis realize how blessed our area is. I'm pretty high up there, just like you, Cary, and Jeff, and Scotty. You're a little bit younger, but when I started playing, I think is when boys volleyball is really just starting to take off. Cary, and I know your group had kind of laid foundation to where club was starting. But I can remember going to a tryout when I was 10, trying out for a 14 and under team, and I made the alternate, which was a big deal. My mom's like, "Hey, great job." But I remember it just starting, and I remember thinking, this is cool. Other boys play volleyball. This is awesome. And I was lucky enough that they developed a 12s team, which I think they wrote my mom into coaching at that tryout, and the rest is kind of history. But yeah, some of my favorite teammates, there's a ton to name, but Mike Knittel, Mike Fleming, who actually went on and played basketball in college, Jeff Getz, Dave Byzantine, Brian Good. There's so many. But in college, I think, I went on and played at William Woods for a couple of years and, really connected with like Ben Frericks is a St. Louis guy, and then transferred to Lindenwood, started the program there. And actually my senior year was just really neat where there were 4 seniors, and Marty Zambo, everybody knows that name. He transferred back in for a senior year. And it's funny, growing up, we were always on the opposite teams. We never got to play together. And that 1 year together, it was like magic. I mean, it was just, I knew where he was all the time. I knew where he needed the ball. He knew my tendencies. I mean, we just connected. It was so much fun. But then Chad Zirkle, Josh Zelness, we were the 4 Zs at Lindenwood that year, and just had a great connection. But probably the one guy who, and everybody's got that one teammate that I think just kind of reels you back in or keeps you in the moment whenever you start to lose it. And I know my players don't believe it, but I was a really fiery player. Cary knows, because I think I'm sure I probably had shouting matches with you at some point in matches. But Dave Byzantine was a guy who just, we're like brothers. We've played together since we were 11. We played together at William Woods. He probably is a huge reason I went to William Woods. As soon as I knew that Dave was going, I'm like, yeah, Fulton, Missouri, sure, let's do it. Let's go. And he's a guy I always just connected with. So there's so many great teammates, and I was, and hopefully the players that are listening now here, Jeff and I could go on about the championships and all that kind of stuff. And Scotty's won a gold medal, and Cary's done some unbelievable things coaching, but it's always comes back to the teammates and the players and the bus rides and where you just stop practice because you're laughing. You just love the game. So, those are probably some of my favorite teammates.
Well, I think after those 2 answers, we're going to have to do this again, because I think we could do an hour just talking about the old times of boys volleyball club, high school, Montgomery County. We could probably spend a whole hour doing that.
That's one whole podcast.
That's one whole podcast
right there.
So I'm signing you guys up again. We'll be in touch. But I really appreciate you guys taking the time. I know even though we're staying at home, you guys are busy, and I hope everybody in your households and your families are staying safe and healthy, and looking forward to it again real soon.
Yeah, guys, thanks, man. Appreciate it. That was so much fun. So funny to talk to people, and I've done these podcasts out in California, and they ask me those same questions, like, where'd you start? And I tell them Montgomery County, and they're like, what? I'm like, you guys can't even imagine, man. I'll tell you what. But thanks, guys. That was so much fun, dude. I can't wait to see you guys both after this whole pandemic craziness is done with. And thanks for sharing today. That was a lot of fun and cool to hear some old names, especially Dennis Lafayette, man. I miss seeing him in his convertible Miata flying around everywhere. And God bless his soul, man. Good to see you guys. Thanks a lot for it today. Appreciate it.
Hey, right back to you guys. Appreciate everything you guys are doing for boys volleyball and girls volleyball. So keep it up.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. That was fun.
Bye, guys. Thanks.
See you guys.